Great. That's an interesting approach and one I really hadn't uh, considered, but I appreciate you elaborating on that. So, if we're talking about cybersecurity now, and almost every system, except unless it's mechanical, on the physical side is cyber centric now. It's network centric. So, and when you have a cybersecurity breach in an organization, there's going to be the obvious finger pointing where end users are going to fault the integrators. The integrators are going to point to the manufacturers, and you're going to have this endless loop going. So, from your perspective, who holds the ultimate responsibility for maintaining strong cyber defenses and physical security systems? And how do you think solution providers should be addressing this challenge? And then in general, and then talk about how Genetec's approaching that problem.
All right. Who should be held accountable? It's the executives. Okay. And in fact, Sarbanes-Oxley has a provision in it that Sarbanes-Oxley came about after Enron, when Enron defense was, accounting is so complicated. I didn't know that this was fraud, therefore I'm not guilty.
Right.
And Sarbanes-Oxley says, no, you're guilty of criminal stupidity. Off to the slammer for you. So the thing is that the executives, I don't expect them to understand the details of cyber, but I do expect them to understand that if they don't take their jobs seriously enough and don't put in the resources or the governance, that they are going to be held personally responsible for that. I mean, executives are already held responsible. So, for example, the payroll withholding tax, the executives of a company are personally responsible for that remittance to the. So if the company goes bankrupt and they did not remit that money to the government can go after the executives and the board members of the company for failing to fulfill their fiduciary responsibilities.
Right.
So what we need is to apply. I mean, they could apply Sarbanes-Oxley to go after these executives who have been criminally negligent in implementing the most basic measures of cybersecurity. A tool that we can use to help them is insist upon cyber incompetence insurance. So what you do is you have to insist that your suppliers and your organization has cyber incompetence insurance. And if you are putting in technology without the proper governance or from untrustworthy sources, your insurance rates go up.
Right.
So I don't expect the executives to understand the subtleties of cross-site scripting or other relatively simple concepts, but they do understand, my premiums are going up, I got to do something about it.
The pocketbook always screams louder than the science. So that's for sure. Being around you as long as you have, and the visits I've taken up to Montreal to the site, and meeting the various folks that you have in position, I know one of the proudest things that you like to talk about is that Genetec is one of the last major independent players in our market, and a market that's increasingly dominated by M&As, almost on a weekly basis. So how do you maintain your independence as a privately owned company, and how has that directly benefited your customers, and also maybe giving you guys a competitive edge in innovation?
Well, first of all, our growth is actually not limited by the availability of cash. Our growth is limited by our ability to attract and retain talented craftspeople.
Right.
The first way we remain independent is by actually not putting in that, having anyone involved in the business that only have financial interests. But we also have to do many things to make that sustainable. So putting in governance so we can grow and then ensure that the proper decisions, the proper people are brought at the proper time to make the proper decisions is an amazing challenge in a fast growing organization. Also making sure that we have an up-to-date succession plan so that if anything happens to anybody in the chain of command, that the organization will be able to continue thriving. Now, the benefits of that, so there are drawbacks. The drawback is that we don't have private companies are, the evaluations of private companies are, factor of 3 to 5 less than public companies,
Right.
Because we're not playing with other people's money. And so our ability to pay ginormous salaries that you see, we don't have that. We don't have that ability. But on the other hand, there's a lot of very talented people who are not just motivated by their own self-interest. They're motivated by interests on multiple levels. Yes, of course, there's the economic level, but there's the professional level. I want to do the best. And then there's the philosophical level. I want to make this place, the world, a better place than when I came into it. So I guess that the constraint that we have being private has some drawbacks, but it also has positive. We're able to attract other like-minded people and people who have a multi-level motivation and that enjoy and love the craft of software development. I've been writing code now for about 47 or 48 years, and I still love doing that. And I surround myself with young people that love doing that and can teach me something about it. And so I think that is it's not only a differentiator, but it's sort of like where we like to be.
Well, and again, I mean, it shows in the people you surround yourselves with, and the sense I've gotten in the times I've visited the factory is you can really see that sense of joy and camaraderie with the team among themselves, and then when you interact with them as well. And having been in the industry for 35 plus years myself, I remember the days of the independent companies like the Ruscos and the Sensormatics, and before all these companies were gobbled up by the big the big affiliates, and there was a different sense of purpose and a different sense of working with your customers back then, and I appreciate that. All right, so we're going to finish this off with one political question. We had to do this, Pierre. Given the barrage of U.S. imposed tariffs being imposed on many of the global trading partners that the U.S. has, and your company as a bellwether Canadian technology company with strong ties to U.S.-based partners and also having a global network, how is Genetec creating a strategy right now to deal with this chaotic situation? And I'd like to get your opinions of it, and where do you think it's headed? And I'll just take off the muzzle and let you go.
Well, we don't have to create a strategy because we actually had one that was actually in play. We didn't actually foresee the state of events, but well, all of our hardware, we're using a tier 1 US-based contract, well, US-based. They're US headquartered contract manufacturer, but it's a tier 1. So one of the differences of tier 1 is our ability to move stuff from one plant to the other. Mm-hmm. Fortunately for us, that we had moved almost all of the hardware that we design ourselves to U.S. Based manufacturings in New England, and so the tariffs are not going to affect us there. The As far as software is concerned, software is not software and services are not subject to these tariffs, so
Right.
they don't affect us. A funny thing that has happened to us, though, is the reaction in Europe. So there was something that happened in Europe which actually makes it problematic for us to actually use one of the plants we have in Europe, and because then they also have short-sighted ideas, and so actually we're going to have to try to ship from the U.S. Hopefully they don't tariff us, or else we have other plants in again, this contract manufacturer has a plant in India, so we can then maybe we'll have to supply other European countries from India because of the incompetence of their own politicians. So as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I look at this a little bit from a point of view of a scientist and an engineer. And just like cybersecurity is a waste of my time, it's a necessary evil, I have to do it. Well, all this tariff stuff is a waste of my time. And I wish that rational minds would step in and prevail. But, Dunning-Kruger teaches us that there is an asymptotic limit to the speed at which progress can be achieved, and that there's the inevitable steps backward that have to be taken as we are moving forward. So for us and our customers, it's just extra unwanted, annoying work, and the rationale for it is not clear at all.
Believe me, we understand that down here.
And it's not stopping us from, for example, traveling to ISC West and all that. I know that there's this big backlash that some some Canadians. I'm annoyed and angry, but in karate they teach us we have to have a measured response, and I think that not all of my fellow Canadians are as rational as I would like them to be. And so anyways, we're forging along. Again, it's a waste of money. It's a waste
that's
of
all right.
time.
I mean, it's still you got at least a little bit of satisfaction on the Four Nations Championship, so that was a joy to watch. I enjoyed that
was poetic justice, but I mean, ultimately, these friendly library, it's just like at the Olympics when it's Canada versus the US, it's the same thing all the time. I find it super sad that we're booing. I don't know if the Canadians are getting their national anthem booed, but I don't know if you remember, it was maybe 10 years ago. It was in Toronto. It was a hockey game, and the batteries on the microphone of the singer went out as she started singing the U.S. national anthem. And without losing a beat, the Canadian fans sang the U.S. national anthem a cappella.
I remember that.
So
you and I would love to get back to that. I'm not looking forward to Canada being the 51st state anytime soon. Believe me.
No, we won't be the 51st. Yeah. We'll be the 50th to the 63rd. Like we have 10 provinces and 3 territories. They each are going to insist on having, if you know how stupid Canadian politics are, they're each going to insist on having 2 senators each. So that's going to be 26 senators that they're going to want to have. And
well, I worked for Ilko Unican back in the separatist days, so I was in Montreal, half of the year, and I remember the politics of that. So that was just as confounding as we're seeing here in the States. So
that's another major waste of time.
Yes, it is.
You guys don't know about, but yeah, we have our own major wastes of time and energy in Canada.
I hear you. Pierre, I tell you, always a pleasure. I wish we had more time. I'm going to have to get you back on here, but it's always a joy to talk to you. Your insights are compelling. Your intellect is something that I find admirable for just being able to hit the high topics, but keeping it on a level that everybody understands, especially for me, since I'm not really a technologist. So again, I know you're busy. I appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks.
Well, so am I. And, it's Alan Alda who, in his really good book about science education, its title is If I Understood What You Said, Would I Have This Funny Face? And the gist of the book is that it's the scientific educator has 60% or more of the responsibility of making sure that the students understand what they say. Of course, the student has some responsibility, but the majority of the responsibility is on the transmitter of the knowledge, not on the receiver of the knowledge. And so I try to implement as many of Alan Alda's ideas. Max was very influential in the way I think and also the way Genetec is organized. So, anyways, thank you for the compliment. And let's. I don't know if you're going to be in Las Vegas, but we can have a beer there. And
I will be in Vegas, and we'll have a Molson's. Believe me.
All right, we'll drink. I like crafts beer. I don't like industrial.
If we
beer.
can find a craft beer, we'll find a craft beer. We'll do that.
Tie or something like that is
very good. All right. Well, again, many thanks, Sam. I'm going to throw this back to you to take us home.
All right, Steve, thank you, and Pierre, for this insightful conversation about the rapidly evolving technology and issues the security industry is facing and how our listeners can prepare for them. And thank you for tuning in. This podcast is your go-to source for staying ahead in the security industry, offering sharp insights, real-time trends, and straight talk for industry professionals. It's built to keep you informed and empowered wherever you are. Stay connected, stay sharp, and maintain security at the forefront. To access our podcast lineup, go to podbean.com and search for Security DNA. You can also find our podcast on our Security Frontline, Integrator Newswire, and Security Week e-newsletters, as well as our new YouTube channel. Of course, we'd love to receive feedback from you, our listeners, about topics that interest you. If you have a suggestion, email Steve at Lasky, that's SLASKY, at SecurityInfoWatch.com. This episode of the Security DNA podcast was recorded and produced by Samantha Schober, that's me, the assistant editor at Security InfoWatch. For Steve Lasky, Pierre Racz, and everyone else at Security InfoWatch, thanks for listening and keep an ear open for our next podcast.